Noveske, known for quality rifles, novel solutions, and battle-tested designs. Well, at least they were. But after John Noveske's death on January 4th, 2013, due to what some might say suspicious circumstances, now they are known for overly expensive, underperforming parts, silly names, softcore porn, and declining sales. Now here I have an ancient example, pre-bimbification. I'm not sure what model name it is, though I don't exactly know what the names mean either, and there's a few of them to keep track of. What I do know, however, is that the modern Noveske name somehow makes them feel justified charging $500 for a forged receiver set. Okay dude, sure. Now this upper comes courtesy of Direct Thread on Instagram and YouTube, who let me play around with this upper for an extended period of time in exchange for some work done on the upper itself, so go check him out. Back to the model I have, it's a 14.5 chrome lined 1 in 7 twist 5.56 barrel with a profile akin to government, but a little lighter up front. The rail is the SWS version of the 9-inch Noveske quad, which yes, does leave a lot of exposed barrel, but it was in vogue at the time, so I will allow it. Also, the rail is pretty solid, weight reduction cuts everywhere makes it barely heavier than most modern M-LOK rails, and still lighter than the Daniel Defense Riz 3. The mounting system for the Noveske rail is very simple. Time the steel barrel nut, bolt the rail to the barrel nut with a bunch of steel bolts, very good. I know people like their fancy wedge locks, wrist locks, and dick twisters for mounting a rail, but nothing beats just bolting pieces together with copious amounts of Loctite and torque. It also has 4 steel QD inserts, which I quite like. Underneath the rail we have our carbine length gas system, pinned gas block, and black nitride gas tube. I know, a carbine length gas system on a 14.5 barrel is a little short, but it was in vogue at the time. This is also the only major parts change, with the factory pinned gas block being swapped out for a Superlative Arms adjustable gas block, and with a rugged suppressor mount out front, this thing won't suck to shoot suppressed, which we will get to. Speaking of getting to things, John Noveske was on his way somewhere in a hurry on that fateful day, Friday, January 4th of 2013. At approximately 9:13, while traveling west on the Lower River Road, heading away from Grants Pass in his 1984 Land Cruiser, he crossed over, or was pushed over, the oncoming lane and into the dirt on the far side of the road, where his vehicle eventually struck a few boulders, the resulting crash allegedly causing his body to eject from the vehicle and to be found nearby. The assumed reason for his ejection? No safety restraints were engaged before the crash. What caused the accident is not known, and the toxicology report is not publicly available. The road, suspiciously straight and free of debris. Some have theorized black ice or perhaps an animal caused his diversion out of his lane. However, with a high of 50 degrees Fahrenheit on that Friday evening, ice is unlikely. And before the crash, no brake marks, no sign of an emergency maneuver, just a crash 1984 Toyota Land Cruiser and John's body separated from the vehicle. Now the upper receiver is a Volter billet job. It's blocky, angular, and looks cool, I guess you could say. I wouldn't. Standard forward assist and dust cover, and the build is rounded out with a Radian charging handle and I believe the original BCG, which looks to be in decent shape. Gas rings a little on the worn side, but other than that seems to be a pretty decent mil-spec phosphate chrome job indicative of the type of rifle it is. Now, as you would probably expect, when it comes to shooting a 14.5 carbine from 2007, it's a little on the punchy side, but very normal for the time. Where it gets really bad is if you try to suppress it, which I did. That will make it gassier than a 1940s semi during shower time. It's not great, it kind of does one thing okay. For my uses, an H3 buffer and a Super 42 spring makes it much more pleasant, though the rate of fire is still super high when using a farting device. Now, with a Superlative Arms adjustable gas block, you have a lot of internal adjustment. The first group of settings are standard, open to closed in terms of how much gas it lets back into the system. In the second group of settings, you have a bleed-off mode where it takes some of that extra pressure and vents it forward. Supposedly, this can help further reduce excess gas in the system, especially since you have a lot of pressure at the port, being a carbine link gas system with a lot of dwell time on a 14.5 and extra back pressure with a can. Now, even with the adjustable gas block, it's never going to perform like a rifle that was just set up for suppressed shooting from the get-go, but it's much more manageable and won't make you want to check out the lip zone on an XDM when shooting suppressed as it was before. When it comes to accuracy, I have no idea how old the barrel is, how many rounds have been fired. All I know is that I have not been particularly kind to it either. However, for a lightweight fighting rifle, quote unquote, though for the average Noveske fan, the only thing they're fighting is their crippling gooning habit, why are you as a man concerned about women? You should be concerned with the retaking of Constantinople or kickstarting the Christian Imperium. Anyways, it puts up fine groups for what it is, 2 to 3 MOA with ball and a little better with match ammo, which makes sense. Now, what's not making sense, however, is the timeline and possible motivation for John's untimely demise. The circumstances being what they are around the accident leave little to uncover without eyewitnesses, toxicology reports, or more detailed forensic evidence. The trail is as cold as the ground his body was found on. But if you don't take the official narrative, or at least not all of it, what could possibly be the reason that someone, or perhaps an agency, would want to have him out of the picture? Noveske at this time was no doubt in the middle of some healthy government contracts, thus giving him direct communication with various contractors and government officials. And it's these theoretical connections that could have ended up being his undoing. Before his demise, John had made numerous posts on social media about the ties between mass casualty events, psychosis, and tragedies, and the use of SSRIs. These drugs, peddled heavily by the pharmaceutical industry, have been linked to a surprising amount of tragic events and their perpetrators. Eric Harris, Zoloft and Luvox. Dylan Klebold. Redacted, but witnesses claimed he took Paxil and Zoloft. Jeff Weiss, Prozac. Corey Badsgard, Paxil, switching to Vexor. Christopher Pittman, Zoloft to Paxil. Keb Kinkel, Prozac and Ritalin. Luke Woodham, Prozac. Michael Carneal, Zoloft. Andrew Golden, Ritalin. Mitchell Johnson, Ritalin. TJ Solomon, Ritalin. Rod Matthews, Ritalin. Elizabeth Bush, Paxil. Jason Hoffman, Prozac. Jared Victor, Paxil. Kurt Danish, Prozac. Hamad Memon, Zoloft. Maddie Sari, various SSRIs. Asa Kuhn, Trazodone. Chrissy Fetters, Prozac. David Crespi, Prozac. James Holmes, Zoloft. And the list goes on. But so does the review. When I see something like these older Noveske 14.5s, I think they look neat and represent a different time in the AR market, where now a short rail, a quad rail, and a short gas system would be very frowned upon, but back then, just send it, slap a Noveske logo on it, and ship it for about $2,000. Outside of a novelty or collector piece, or just as a reminder of simpler, better times, I would never recommend getting something like this. As a rifle, it's fine, but just that. Now, modern Noveske, that's a different story. $3,000 for a standard blowback 9mm? I don't know how much substances you need to be on to think that's a good idea, but they are on them, I assure you. Actually, all of their offerings are around $3,000 for a pretty basic AR. I guess they went with the expensive hookers for marketing. At this point in time, it's mid-tier performance at maximum price tag. All of the parts that I've tried in the past have been mediocre at best, and frankly, they don't have anything I consider worthy of your hard-earned money. And if you just have a hard-on for their marketing materials, seek Christ, brother. New Noveske is a husk. It wears the skin suit of a once interesting and innovative brand, and now it's just a dying company limping on in the shadow of greater men. Speaking of the shadows, what a strange coincidence that later in 2013, journalist Michael Hastings was killed in a car crash the day after he messaged close associates that the feds were closing in on him, and to seek legal counsel immediately. At this time, it was speculated he was investigating the CIA surveillance systems, including the use of drones and other methods of covert data collection on the American populace. A mere 15 hours after these messages were sent, he allegedly drove his Mercedes C250 at the car's maximum speed through a residential district where he lost control and died. According to witnesses, the car was traveling at top speed and leaving a trail of sparks and flames before it went off the road. It wasn't until years later, during the 2017 WikiLeaks, it was discovered that the CIA had been researching on how to utilize remote control technology, specifically to take control of vehicles from afar. The purpose, ostensibly, to allow the CIA to engage in undetectable assassinations. Very in vogue at the time. God bless.